Welcome to Living Your Path. I am Cecile Ferry, a coach and astrologer. I'm here to guide you on how to live and work in alignment with your true self so you can find fulfillment and serenity. Hello, my beautiful people. I am so excited to be back with you today. Wish I could have done that sooner, but it is how it is. Quite busy these days, but very, very enjoyable. Lots of work with my beautiful clients. I've been doing amazing birth chart readings that have been life-changing. I'm going to share some of those testimonials through my newsletter, through my Instagram at Living Your Path. And really something I want you to think about, because if you knew the impact that it has in every single one of those clients in their lives in terms of clarity, of direction, of path, of knowing who they really are deep down and what they're meant to do, it's amazing. And I love doing that for them and seeing the results and the impact. So I just felt like sharing that with you right now because you may be in need of that and I want that for you too. So I always put the link in the show notes to my website so you can look it up and book it for yourself. I have availability over the next month or two. And this can be a really nice thing to do as we are still in like the busy time of the year where things are ramping up, and they will be ramping up astrologically in March, in the second half in particular, and April and May. Okay. And I really feel like this is the time where things really start taking off, where we accomplish things in our year. It's the beginning of the astrological year at the start of Aries season, 20th of March. So we're getting there. So actually, I think it's a really good time to get started on your next step in your life, whether it's in your career or things you want to change in your personal life. And what else than a birth chart reading to give you the tools, the map, in order to know exactly what is true to you and what you're meant to be doing. So there you go. I wasn't planning on saying that, but it came to me. Now, I have a really, really exciting episode today. You'll be like, what? Perfectionism is exciting? But I must say, I am excited because I've been thinking and wanting to do that episode for a long time, probably 2 years, if I'm honest. And you know why I didn't do it sooner? Because I told myself I needed to really master this in order to come here and help you with it. And guess what? That is being a perfectionist right there, isn't it? That's the irony of it. So I haven't fully mastered it, but I am way better than what I used to be. So yeah, I'm completely a self-confessed perfectionist. I was, and I am on the way back from it, recovering, and had recently a big aha as I worked through a clearing session with a professional and friend of mine that really helped me on that. So that's why I was like, you know what? I saw really clearly what was holding me back, and I want to share that with you today. So it's going to be a bit of a journey where I'm going to draw on my experiences, but also on my coaching experience with clients, and a lot of psychology, and also some more deeper stuff that I've been working through. So you gotta just bear with me. I'm gonna borrow from all those different places to bring you something hopefully that is going to knock your socks off, because I think there's just so much talk about perfectionism out there that doesn't really get into it, that doesn't move the dial. Because I know I was seeking, I was looking, and I read a lot of books on it. And I don't know you, but just, knowing that you're doing it is one thing, but just like hearing basic advice just doesn't cut it. It doesn't change it. So I'm really hoping that today what I'm going to share is going to be vastly different from everything you've heard on that topic before. And I'm going to go for it. I'm really hoping this is going to be the episode that's going to make you get it and help you shift from some of the past tendencies that we're going to talk about and into a different place. Okay, so that's the goal. No biggie. And I will start by saying this is a completely safe space for perfectionists, all shapes, forms, and sizes, because I reckon there are a lot of us out there. So no shame, no judgment, like full acceptance of who we are. And we are all beautiful people and we all are on the journey. But I'm going to cover today a lot of things about perfectionism, like the signs of it and where it hides. And I'm going to talk about astrologically who might be more prone to it and why. So we're going to really get to understand it really, really well. And then I will tell you how to shift out of that. And I will share my own perspective and the mindset change that I had about it. So I'm going to give you a method to overcome that, and hopefully you can apply that in your life and see the result for yourself. So I hope you're excited. Are you ready? Let's get into it. So where is perfectionism coming from? Well, no one is born with it. It's not a gene, it's not a thing. We are born imperfect. And nature isn't perfect, like you can look at it, right? So as human beings, we're part of nature. We are born imperfect. And our bodies are not perfect either, even from the moment we are born, right? Yet, we live in a world where it is a modern obsession to be perfect because it sells stuff. So we're always being sold, buy this, do that, in order to be more perfect. And that is frankly unhealthy, but I can't do anything about that right now. But that is just unfortunate, right? We live in those times where striving and high standards are highly praised, right? And that can be the downside of personal development. That can really push you, being too much of a perfectionist. So just a little watch out for all of you, my dear friends, who do love personal development, like me. It can help, but it can also hinder us. And the thing is, perfectionism is therefore passed down from generation to generation. And that is the crux of it, because we are not born with it, but we get it through conditioning, through our parents in general, or whoever cared for us when we were a young child, and then we adopt it. A lot of it goes into the subconscious, and then we run our lives that way, and we tend to reproduce the model with our own children, and so it goes, right? So that is me too. I now look back and I can see that I have namely a father who has very high standards, and you could call therefore perfectionist tendencies, and he didn't mean it that way, but he passed that on. And especially in the areas of study and work, I was extremely driven to always have A's and to be the perfect girl, because his love was conditional to that. And I have done that work and I have forgiven him for that, but that's the model that I received. So as a result, like as I said, I was a perfectionist. Now I am aware and I'm recovering. It takes a long time to undo many years, 20, 30 years of that conditioning into you. And so if you saw me, and you see me through my branding and some of the videos and photos that I share on my social media and website, right? I'm someone who always, like to look good and to have my house in order and clean. And I've always seen that in my life. But I used to pride myself on all those things, right? But now when I look back, knowing what I know, some of it was pure ridiculous. So for instance, I remember when my daughter was really little, and I remember completely having a meltdown because I had dressed up my daughter with something really nice on the way to go to daycare. And then she would just have a spill of her breakfast. And that used to send me mad, which now I'm looking back, I'm like, what was the big deal? And how ridiculous, right? So I just want to know, I've been there, done that. I'm all of those things. But I will say as well that it's not all bad. Like, being a perfectionist gets you somewhere in life. It helps you grow in life, because the sense of progress is what makes us grow in life. So a perfectionist will do things, get them to be better. So by definition, that motivates you and that gets you somewhere. And basically that got me and maybe you to where we are and to having what we have. And I can look around me and I've got all the signs of a beautiful life. I have a beautiful house. I have a really nice career. I have a beautiful daughter. I can have beautiful friendships. I have a lot of those things that have come from my perfectionism. Okay? So it does help to some extent. And when you look at perfectionists, like, a lot of them are remarkably successful as adults, but usually they didn't feel successful as a child. So just park that thought for a minute. But it does bring a sense of success, at least partially or temporarily or fleetingly, to those people. But to people outside of them, they look really successful. So that sounds good, but perfectionism is also very pervasive because it invades and crawls into every little corner of your life. I know you're not seeing it maybe, or like for me, I would be like, oh, it's just showing up in my work because that's kind of where I felt virtuous. But trust me, you can't be perfectionist in one area of your life and not in another. It's very rare. How you do one thing is how you do everything, okay? And we will talk about the consequences, but it makes you do. So very closely associated with perfectionism is this overworking, this over-pushing yourself, and it's relentless because you want to get to the top, you want to get to perfection, which never ends. So it's relentless, and usually you are unable to relax until everything is perfect. Does that ring a bell? Don't worry, you're in good company. Let's get more into where this is coming from and how it expresses itself. So let me start with the astrological perspective here, because it's true. So which sign, so who is likely to be more prone to perfectionism? Here I will call out specifically the Virgo energy. Virgo's approach to life and intention is to become perfect. It's to refine things, but in the noble way. The problem is we can really get stuck the other way. So if you've got Virgo sun sign, Virgo moon in particular, and Virgo rising or Virgo rising in your chart, you are likely to be a perfectionist. You can easily fall into that tendency. Or it could be, you might be none of those three things, because my sun, moon, and rising are not Virgo, but I have a lot of Virgo energy. I have a lot of planets in Virgos that are outside of my sun, moon, and rising. So it can be you too, and that's why you need a birth chart to see that. So I have my Jupiter in Virgo, my Saturn in Virgo, my North Node in Virgo, right? So it weighs in heavily, and some of those planets are in my career part of my chart, okay? So I am definitely a perfectionist. And the other sign that I feel is quite aligned with it is Capricorn. So if you have Capricorn sun, moon rising, again, also Capricorn energy, especially around work. So I'm a Capricorn sun. Capricorn is going to work really hard to achieve goals. So it's not militarily going to lead you to perfectionism, but it's that striving that the Capricorn has and that obsession, kind of, that fixation to get there and to not relax until you get there. So Capricorn has very high standards. So that can really be the direct bridge to perfectionism tendencies. So there you go. For me, I have a lot of Virgo and I'm Capricorn sun. So I can say, hey, it's part of who I am in a way, right? But I had heavy conditioning, and that's what I want you to consider. It's not like, oh, it's there and you have it for your life. Not at all. Because you can be a Virgo and Capricorn person that is not perfectionist. You just have to learn the good side and the not so good side of your signs and learn to grow and to live in the higher vibration of that sign. I can explain all of that on the birth chart reading together. Now, when we look at behaviors and thoughts and feelings, how does perfectionism express itself? It's things like we cannot accept second best. It has to be the best or nothing. It's that black and white, all or nothing. We like keeping everything in perfect order. When I say everything, it can be anything in our life, from our homes to our fitness routine, to our kids, to work, to how we organize our stuff. And we pour a lot of energy into that. That's the sign. And we typically would do like lots of lists, fixing things, cleaning, planning, putting so much energy into that and not as much time into being creative or letting it go, right? So basically we really actively controlling a lot of that and really driving that really far. And then there is an aspect around our physical appearance. We must look our best all the time. There's a feeling that there is so much to accomplish that you have no time to relax. That I have a really strong relationship with. I always, do all those lists and feel like I can't relax until it's all done. That's perfectionism. There's the feeling that you deserve strong criticism when you make a mistake, right? So that's like, really dreading the thought of making a mistake or having something wrong or not working out. Also, life is not really fun. It's hard to have fun in life. We're quite serious, and that's also the Capricorn archetype. People feel inadequate around you. So you might not always know that because they may not tell you. You might pick up on it, but it can happen, right? And that tends to be a bit of a giveaway sign that maybe, that you have achieved really well, but you are probably a bit of a perfectionist and you don't stop and enjoy successes because the perfectionist cannot relax and sit back and enjoy what it has achieved because there is always more to achieve, right? So do you recognize yourself in some of those traits? And it's completely okay. As I said, welcome to the club. And then I also want to point out a few sneaky little places where perfectionism hides out, because it hides in things that don't look like perfectionism. So bloody clever, right? And I was the master at that. Like, I was like, nah, I might be a bit of a perfectionist with my appearance, but that's the thing. Often perfectionists don't think that they are. Yet it's really visible to other people. Like, I'm sure you can name some of your friends that are perfectionists, but are you sure you're not? And so two things in particular where I see perfectionism hiding, and I pick that up with my clients every single time. The first one is confusion. So where you are not able to decide, or you are feeling like you don't know how to do something, or you don't know what to do, and you're looking like for the path and you're sort of like unsure. That sounds very valid, like confusion. And you know what? It's perfectionism, because deep down, you have a belief that you need to know the perfect path and you need to take that and do that really well in order to get there. So you stay stuck because you're like, oh, I don't know what the perfect path is. So that's a big one. Secondly, it hides in procrastination, because you get overwhelmed, even sometimes before you start, because the standard of what you want to do is so high, because that's just how it is in your world, that it just feels hard before you even get started sometimes. Or, you're going to have to put a lot of effort, energy into it. And of course, then you feel deflated, like you feel depressed, you have a negative emotion, and that keeps you in procrastination. So these are really two little sneaky ways it can hide. Okay, now let me move on to what do we do with this thing. So I'm going to share my personal experience here, my recent experience. So I work with a friend who is a mind-body practitioner, and her specialty is doing emotional clearing using essential oils, and it really works. I'm always amazed by the results, and I love practicing with her. If you do want her details, very happy to share them. Just send me a DM on Instagram at Living Your Path and I'll share her details. But what I really got to see clearly, because I did a clearance on some business blocks that I had, and I didn't think at all that it was about perfectionism, because it was more about confusion actually. And she goes into like subconscious memories, and it's a really fascinating process. And I really got to see that perfectionism was my block and was at the root of it. And I'm here to tell you, because I saw it very, very clearly, perfectionism is a mindset error. It is a malfunction of your mind and your brain. It is a very erroneous way of thinking, but it can be very well practiced. Something is heavily skewed in your brain. It's a really weird, twisted way of thinking. So the image for me that came through as I was doing this session was of a very tiny, discombobulated path that I had to take a squeeze into. Like it felt like this very impractical, tight way that, I had to just squeeze and bend myself, and like really it felt like a contortion, so to speak, and it felt like very much like that was the way and there was no other path. And so perfectionism is this heavy thing. It feels like a structure. It feels like a big list of principles, of guidelines to follow. It's never free-flowing. There is no room for exploration. And the main feeling this is associated with is pressure. I want you to keep this word in mind, because you need to tune in to that pressure that you have. And then it feels like restriction, like hardship, like high standards, all of those things, right? And it's important to feel those things. And the thing is, this comes from our childhood. We followed the path that was given to us, the perfectionist path, because we were not allowed to do it any other way by our parent. It was a survival mechanism, a protection mechanism, because we were told, do this, or we're not giving love to you. We're not showing appreciation. You're not going to be a good kid. So that's where it comes from. And the thing is, you don't even realize as a child that you are being pushed to perfection, because your brain can't have that level of awareness. It is just how you experience life, and you can't see quote unquote normal parameters and judge if what you're being asked to do is outside of those. And that's why when you become an adult, being a perfectionist, operating that way, is just a normal level for the person involved. That's why I didn't even know, right? And it can be a little difficult sometimes to confront that and be like, no, I'm not a perfectionist. No. But look how it expresses through your clothing, your styling, your appearance, your work, your business, your home, your appearance. Like, you will see it, right? And what I said is it can be good, but more often than that, it's an important and persistent block. It will and it is holding you back way, way, way more than it is driving you forward or than it is serving you. Keep that in mind, the balance between the two. It's actually more dragging you down than it is moving you forward. Because what comes with it, we can even start with the physical side of things. Because you drive yourself so much, you are exhausted. And you can even have physical pains as a result of that. Also on the mental and emotional front, like you may experience chronic frustration and anxiety, that was me, irritability, or hell yes, like my daughter as a child coped it so much because things were not perfect. And possible depression because you feel like you're not getting anywhere or you're not getting to the level that you want to get to. And the thing is, when you're in that place, you tend to chase more perfection to feel better because that's your default system. But you don't realize that the way you approach things makes it near impossible to be satisfied. So if you like, the solution that you use to feel better is actually the very thing that keeps you stuck. And so, because that state of perfection can never be reached, that peace that you seek, or the day when you can relax, that never ever comes. And that's the sad part of it. And that's why, we need to start addressing those things, because in the meantime, we keep doing those things. We keep pushing ourselves, or we keep being stuck in procrastination or in confusions, and we're not progressing. And we're making it, frankly, harder on ourselves than what it needs to be. So what can we do about it? How can we beat that perfectionism when it's been ingrained? And I want you to really think it's possible, because it is. It's just conditioning, years of it, but you can reprogram your brain. It's neuroplasticity. And I have been on the journey, but you do need to follow the steps that I'm going to give you. And I will start by saying that the general advice that's out there about perfectionism, I don't think works. At least it didn't work for me. And it's the general advice that, I think that, what you're doing is good enough. I don't know you, but good enough isn't cutting it for me. When you are a perfectionist, that you really need to see what you're doing and not just plaster a kind of, just do good enough, just like lower your standards. We can't because we feel like our survival is linked to it. It takes nearly like a whole overhaul of your mindset and your identity and your sense of safety in the world. That needs to all be reprogrammed in order for it to shift. But that can happen pretty quickly once you see it. So I don't want you to feel discouraged. First things first, a bit of awareness. Do an inventory of where it manifests in your life. And trust me, maybe before this podcast you didn't fully realize, but start looking around. Like I gave you examples for me, like in how you maintain your home or your car, or how you look after yourself physically, or when you cook, or when you entertain, your relationship with your kids, with your friends. Like, look at all the ways you run your life, and especially keeping like that idea of order and perfection, and where does it show up? And don't judge yourself, please. That wouldn't achieve anything. Just be a little curious about it. And then I want you to list the advantages or the benefits that come with doing that, with being that way, because there are a lot of them. And bank them, credit yourself with them. It makes you a really high-performing worker. For me, it makes me a really good coach because I'm used to growing myself so much, and I've learned so much about it that I can use that to the benefit of my clients. And looking good is a great achievement for yourself, right? This is important. Look at what you gain through it, whether it's money, it's recognition, it's success. You're a beautiful host. You've been able to cultivate beautiful friendship because of the way that you organize events and parties, all those things, There's a good side to it. Let's acknowledge it. It's not all bad, okay? And then I want you to look at the cost in your life. That's not as fun, right? But start looking at what has been neglected as a result of you chasing the perfectionism. So what has not got your focus? And it can often be things like family or your partner. Look at the cost on your health. We talk about physical impact of pushing yourself so much all the time, and your mental health as well, your mood. What's been the impact on your time? What has been the cost on your time? And if you could, I would love for you to actually quantify, especially if it's at work, because you might be taking 3 or 4 hours to do one task that you could do in 1 hour, but you choose to do it perfectly well. That's a typical example where you can see how much time this has costed you and what you could have done with the rest of the time, okay? So look also at the impact on your relationships, and that is not an easy one to look at because you don't want to be that person, but be a bit honest with yourself. Are you quite critical of other people, your kids, your partner? Because we tend to project that tendency, We want them to be like us. But look at what it's costing you in which areas of your life the energy has been a bit off. You have not felt like fun. When you focus so much on order, it is at the expense of something else. What was that something else? So if you like, it's the counterpart of just the question before, what were the gains? Therefore, what's the cost? And they probably mirror each other. Now, the main thing I want you to do next is to reject the perfectionism. The thing is that conditioning will imprint it into your subconscious mind because you were told when you were a kid. For me, when I did the emotional clearing session, I was brought back to a piano lesson that I had when I was 7. And it got imprinted onto me. And I had even no idea about that memory, right? But it did come up. And so it happens and gets into your brain. And at the time and throughout the following years, it is reinforced as a neural pathway. It has like a positive connotation to you. It's weird, it's paradoxical, but your brain has been programmed to see it as a good thing. And you're not consciously deciding that because it just gave you safety, it gave you love, at times it gave you praise. All those things feel good to you. So chances are still to this day, perfectionism, even if you listen obviously with your brain today, you're like, these things are a bit too extreme and I know they're not healthy for me. But it doesn't matter. Your brain, especially your child's brain in you, thinks this is good stuff. This actually is rewarding. So the first thing, the most important thing, if you can get to that, and I'll talk about ways, is to actually change the way you feel about the idea of perfectionism and change the emotions associated with it and reprogram them from things that are rewarding, giving you dopamine, satisfaction, pride, and all those great things that your parents gave you as a result. And we wipe that, and instead we program them as being bad, painful, toxic, and terrible. Like just yuck. And that's the work that I did with my friend, the practitioner, right? You gotta make perfectionism the bad guy, the poison. And you need to see it as the distorted little crazy way of doing something, as opposed to the way. You need to remove that glossy side because it deprives you, the truth is, it deprives you of pleasure and of progress, and it blocks you. And for me, it was as I was doing the work and I could see this tiny little horrible way that I had to squeeze myself into, and I felt so hard and so much pressure that I was like, this is terrible. I don't want this for myself, like bad. I want you to get to that place consciously, and you got to drop into that. You got to see it, and in a way, you got to access your subconscious mind. More on that in a minute. So you need to reprogram it from a kind of pleasurable notion, which you don't even grasp could be happening, but that's what's happening. It gives to you to be a perfectionist, to, terrible, yuck, I actually don't want this thing. And every time, you feel that, it actually puts you off. That's what you want, okay? That's the goal. And I want you to start seeing and visualizing what it would feel like without that. If you didn't have to squeeze yourself into that tiny little pathway, if you are with me on my metaphor. See the expansiveness in your life then. See the free space, the possibilities, like the freedom that you have to roam, to experience, to try, to express yourself. You can be more free, you can innovate, you can imagine, try, see, create freely. Imagine, like for me, that's the image that came to me. Like outside of that tiny little way, there's all this white space and all that space to be me and to just roam around and float around there and just be carried by what takes me and my inspiration and me, because you don't just have to do the way of the highway, right? And really just start picturing your life without the current perspective of needs to be perfect. And a quick question you can use as a prompt that I use for myself is, does it matter that? Does it matter that this is that way? Does it matter that my house is clean today? Does it matter that my hair is done perfectly? Does it matter that I have delivered this by tomorrow? Always ask us, does it matter? Does it matter? Does it really matter? Because often we will think it does, but it's usually pretty trivial. And then once you've done that, I want you, really giving you all the tools here, think about getting back in touch with your natural self, because that's the side that's been completely compressed through your early conditioning. And it's being in touch with things like love, family, friendship, creativity, and fun. Good chances those areas are underlooked in your life. So you gotta upweight them and start investing more time or energy and like just your focus and think more about those things in your life. So now we're getting into what I call the reparenting work. So, working on what was imprinted on you as a child. And you had to do this, but not anymore. Now you are an adult, you no longer need to do this, and you are completely free to not be perfect. And that's the work. You are free to try it your way, to do an average job, to give up halfway, to change your mind, to do a B- instead of an A+, to not have all the T's crossed, you not have to get everything done that's on the to-do list. Sometimes you'll be pretty perfect, you do something great, but you allow yourself that this doesn't have to be 100% of the time. The biggest successes in life rarely come from perfection. So I'm going to give you some affirmations. You may want to write some of them down if they resonate for you. These are all different, but see if one really hits a chord with you. Practice it every day several times. When I try to be perfect, I lose. When I allow myself to do it my way, even imperfectly, I win. It's okay to not have everything go perfectly well all the time. My survival is not threatened by mistakes or imperfections. I don't have to suffer to get it right. I can accept second best. I am comfortable with the easy route, the easy pace. I don't have to strive. I can lower my standards without feeling like a failure. So start practicing that and reprogramming your subconscious mind. I mentioned an emotional clearing technique. You can also look into EFT, subliminals. I've mentioned those on the podcast. They work really well. Or any kind of energy work with someone you trust who's qualified, of course. Energy editing, for instance, or rapid transformation therapy come to mind. There are others. I am not qualified in all those, but trust that you'll be guided. You probably have a friend or you will see something that will put you on the track, because it lives usually in your subconscious from when you were a child. That's why reading a book about it doesn't change it. But I hope with what I've said today, I've opened some of those doors between your conscious and subconscious. And your subconscious is going to start showing it to you where it's happening and why you felt that way. And you can start rejecting that and free yourself from it. Another thing you can do is talk with someone who is objective, not someone who's perfectionist. Terrible idea, but someone that you think is quite balanced, to talk with them and share what you're planning to do. talk about your work and your business or your parenting or what you're doing in your life, whether it's a close friend or, a trusted counselor, coach, therapist, and they will feed you back, whether that's a little extreme, a little towards the perfectionism side of thing. And they will say, it doesn't have to be that. You can just do it your way, or why don't you just, start with that? Okay, so that's the thing. Find someone who's in balance, because when you're perfectionist, your standards do not seem unbalanced to you, yet they are. Tricky, hey? So talk to someone and also start managing your time better. So only allow yourself certain time to get things done, because that way you're not going to procrastinate or be a perfectionist about it. Delegate, because that allows you to let other people do things, maybe not to your own standard. And spend more time, like I say, with family, in your hobbies, the fun zone, all those things that are less of a priority when you're a perfectionist. So there you go, my friend. This is my take on perfectionism and why it's there and how to nip it in the bud and shift the dial for you. I think I did a pretty good job today. I don't know if it was perfect. I don't care. I had to stab, I had to go. And you know what? It's best that I did that rather than not done it, because it's more likely to help you than if I was still sitting on that podcast episode like I have been the last 2 years. But I'm not judging myself. And I don't want you either. As you look back to how you have been in the past and you seeing your tendencies, all you really need right now is more self-love and more compassion, because you didn't adopt that. It was given to you. It's not something that, you can take full responsibility for. However, once you're aware, you're fully responsible to change it, and you can. And I can help you through career coaching if it shows up in your career, or in life coaching if it shows up on the personal front. And I can help also looking at it through the lens of your birth chart. So I just want to give you that really massive sense of hope as I wrap this episode, that it's not a bad thing. It's not a life sentence. A lot of people are that. It already is great if you can see it in yourself. It's a massive sign of growth and awareness. And just take what resonated with you today. You were guided probably to this podcast for that reason. And just start implementing those things, whether it's just talking to somebody, or it's doing that inventory, or it's, looking up an EFT video online on perfectionism. Because trust me, your life will be so much more exciting, lighter, and more productive. This is what you're meant to be doing. Like, you're not meant to be striving for perfection, even though it looks like it on the outside. Like, this is not our destiny. This is not our purpose. Not at all. We are here to experience life, to have fun in the process, to learn a bunch of things, and including through challenges and hard times. And so we need to allow ourselves as well to fail, to not be perfect, because that's part of the human experience. So cut yourself some slack, sit back and relax. Don't be perfect for the rest of today, if you can, and if for the rest of the week. And really keep those things in mind and watch as you go through your days. Can I do this any differently? Especially if it feels that feeling of pressure, how can you take it off? Take it off a notch and just watch how much better you feel. All right, my friend, you've got this. I really know you do. And I really thank you for being here. If this episode has been meaningful to you, I would love if you could share it with a friend or two, because chances are that will also help them a lot as it did for you. So I would really appreciate it if you could share it. That's how we grow the podcast and more people really access this information. So thank you so much. You have a beautiful rest of the week and month of March, and I'll talk to you in the next episode. Bye everyone.